Hello and welcome back to season 6 of Corgi Town, USA. I am Candy. In my lap is Chuckles, our spokescorg.
I am Catherine, and at my feet is Digby, my son.
Digby the doof. And we also have Mortimer and Booger in studio. Tito is in his crate. We tend to lose equipment in the studio. You will hear loud borks. Sometimes we cut our mics, and sometimes they decide to frap around and do zoomies, and we lose a camera. We'll be right back if that happens.
Yes.
But that's why we have Tito doing hard time behind bars right now.
Poor Tito.
It's preventative measures because he
Yes.
just can't help his little frappy self. He's still a puppy. But if you're new here, hi, welcome. We are here, Corgi Lifestyle Podcast. We are here for educational purposes and just to be a source of support and information for Corgi parentage and dog parents in general to help with health of the breed, training, grooming, any kind of major concerns that you might have of parents. We try to be a source of information for you and also support because we're here because we love the puppers.
We do.
Yeah, and we're here to support ethical breeding and, of course, adoption and helping empty out those shelters and give some balance to our dear friends in rescue. And so we can do this by informational purposes.
Absolutely.
And then we also have the creator series
We
where
do.
we talk about independent artists and creators that create dog content. So sometimes we just like to bring our friends on that we follow to talk about their stories.
Yes, and today we have one of those friends that we are following.
Yeah, we do. Should we bring them on?
Absolutely.
Okay. If you have been following those Templeton Corgis on the Instagram, the Instagram, does that make me sound old? The Instagram, on the gram, or do we still say the gram?
I don't know because you said the gram, and I was wondering, like, what the heck
that was. Okay, the socials.
Instagram,
the socials.
Facebook, yes,
talk
the
about
socials.
If you have not been following those Templeton Corgis on the socials, you certainly should. If you already are, then you will definitely enjoy. We have brought Wembly and Windsor's mom, Becca, to the stage. Becca, welcome.
Hi, Becca.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time out of your busy day and joining us and kind of telling us about your story. And we're super excited to have you here.
Yes, awesome. Can't wait to get started.
Absolutely.
Well, tell us if you want to just introduce yourself, your family, and your puppies.
Yes, I'm Becca. My husband Drew and we live in Iowa, and we have Wembly and Windsor, our corgis. They're, I think, our fourth and fifth corgis.
Wow.
And so, yep, they're both adopted. Wembly has been with us just over a year now. Windsor is now 9, and we got him when he was about 4. And we live in Iowa. We love sharing their adventures on Instagram, TikTok. We like to travel with them, take them with us as much as we can. So we really just like making content that, helps to talk about their lives, their adventures, where you can take your dogs, and just funny content as well, just to make people laugh. So that's what we like to do.
Aw.
And thank you for sharing that. We're always looking for. I take mine everywhere too, and you guys are masochists like I am. I have multiples.
Mhm.
But I love having a source of information of people that you can consult with or check out content to say where good places are to go with your pets. Like that's so valuable.
Yes, yep. Sometimes it's hard to find, and sometimes it changes,
Yes.
seasonally and all the things. So as much as we can put that out there, because we look for that too. We're scouring Google reviews and everything we can find when we're going places with our dogs. So the more we can share that, we like to be helpful.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite place that you've gone so far with them?
I mean, honestly, California was very, very, very dog friendly. It kind of just depends. And some places too, it depends if you're there too early in the season. Some of the patios aren't open yet.
Right.
So I would say California was a good year-round place, especially the Santa Barbara area. I love when we can bring them inside. Patios
Ah.
are one thing. We always assume we can be on most patios, but it's rare that you can bring dogs inside a lot of places. And Minnesota is really good too. Dogs can go in a lot of breweries and places up there as
Oh,
well. So love
Interesting.
when you can bring them inside. That's always an added bonus.
Yeah, we did. What was it last year, or the year before? After we recorded some shows, we went to the beer
doghouse.
garden, the doghouse. That was it.
Yeah, the
Doghouse beer
Nice.
garden here, and they let us bring the dogs inside. I was
Yeah.
shocked.
Were they supposed to? I don't know.
Yeah, no, they
Because
said
it was
that they were supposed
stormy.
to.
There was like a
It
storm. They're like, come on in. We'll get you some hot dogs. It was a good
It
time.
was great.
Nice.
But thank you for, I didn't know that Minnesota was so dog friendly. That's good to know.
Yes, yep. They're pretty good. I mean, obviously it goes with, if there's a restaurant and all of that inside with all of those laws. So, but there's lots
Sure.
of breweries for sure. So we like going there.
Yeah.
Nice.
One of my favorite places is Bisbee, Arizona, if you've ever been there, because
Oh,
it's
no.
it's an old mining town. And but there are a few celebrities that have retired out there, like comedians and some, I think, like boxers, and just kind of just a very interesting town. So it brings interesting personalities.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's very laid back because it's an old mining town. And so the businesses and things are owned by people. Sometimes they'll just close up shop. Like they don't have specific hours.
No,
Like,
it's very artsy. It's very
yeah,
artsy.
you're like, oh, I'd like to buy some honey from the beekeeper. And you go in and they're like, oh, they're closed. It's Wednesday at 2. Yeah. So they can just
Mhm.
decide to do that. And it's so laid back that they don't care. And so they'll let you bring them in the bars. And I brought them
Nice.
everywhere. Yeah. And it's right next to Tombstone.
Right.
So my corgis have been in the Birdcage Theater, which is kind of cool. All that history.
Awesome.
So
Yeah.
Tombstone's really, really good about it as well. So thank you for sharing
Awesome.
that about
Yes,
Minnesota.
I will add that to the list.
Yeah, definitely. And you'll have
Absolutely.
to come see us. We're nearby.
Yes,
by.
for sure.
Lady.
Sort of.
Sort of. Well, it is. Yeah, it's a drive, but it's closer
We'll
than
come
Idaho.
down. We'll come down and meet you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll come down.
That
Meet
works.
up in Tombstone. We have to get all the accoutrement, the hats and the bandanas and right,
All the stuff.
the
all,
saddles,
Nice.
all the things.
right? We
all the-
gotta live up
Perfect.
to in Tombstone.
It's fun. It's coming the time of year where you don't want to be in Iowa and you'd rather be out here.
Mm-hmm.
Not this
Yep, I
week,
love
but-
it.
Yes, yes. So tell us about the podcast.
Yeah, Wembies. How'd you get started with that?
Wembies.
Honestly, I think it was just looking for a different way to make content. I mean, you can follow trends and make funny videos and share content about, dog-friendly places, but I was trying to think of something that I hadn't seen before, just to kind of do our own thing. And I always talk for the dogs. Like they have their own voices. I talk for them all day long. And so it was just thinking of how I could put that together and what to share. I mean, it started kind of unofficially. It started with doing a bit of a voiceover of just funny things that happened. And then one day I finally just decided, like, what if I just threw some headphones on him and make him introduce himself and like make this a show? And so it just took off from there, just coming up with any random topic I can think of that would be entertaining for him to talk about. And has such personality that usually you can get some good content out of it.
Yeah.
So it just kind of started looking for something different to do that I hadn't seen before.
It's so cute. I love it. Have you seen the Podcast by Wembies?
I have not yet.
Okay, you'll have to.
I will see the podcast. It's just in our off season, Eric and I have been fostering mamas and their puppies, and right now we're fostering just puppies. And I don't know, it kind of says to me that when we reincarnate, we just talked about this on the last show, how we want to be dogs and everything, but the littles, the tinies, they sound like when they do their little whiny barky thing that they don't quite bark yet, they sound like they're saying, yeah, eat, no.
Oh my gosh.
So I just think this whole concept is hysterical because feeding one of them this morning, more. It sounded like more.
Now you have your own show.
Yeah, they should have their own show.
There you
of
go.
just foster puppies.
This
Yep.
episode of Foster Puppies.
Puppies.
I mean, I'm glad you're doing
love
that.
that.
We tell our audience about that because they need fosters for puppies.
We do.
Fosters are in short supply anyway.
Yeah,
but
so
puppies die in shelters.
Yes,
because of their immune systems.
puppies die in shelters because they don't have an immune system. Dogs get better in shelters. I think we're the episode that we're going to do that centers on me and some of the stuff that we're going to do. I'm going to talk about how fostering, and so PSA, go foster.
Yeah,
Yes,
if you can.
please.
If
Yeah,
you can,
if
go
you have a corgi that's not too spicy for friends, because
Yes.
sometimes
Yes.
that's a recurring thing.
Yes, both of our corgis had a foster prior to us to kind of learn the ropes of being in a house. So
Yes,
yes,
that's
very much so.
wonderful.
So thankful for them. Yeah.
Well, so let's talk about how so you've had several corgis. I would love to hear about your history with your pets and how Windsor and Wembly came to be.
Yep. So we've always adopted, my parents adopted. So growing up, we always had adopted dogs. So that was something that was always really important to me that I wanted to continue doing.
Thank you for
And
doing that.
Yes.
yes,
Yay.
yes, absolutely. And our very first corgi was back in, I think, 2007. And at that point in time, I mean, social media was barely getting started. I think I might have had an account because I was in college and you had to be in college to have Facebook. Like
Right.
it
Right.
was that level of social media. And so there just wasn't what there is today to find adoptable corgis, especially there's certain breeds. And so we looked forever. I think Pet Finder was probably the only website we had to go by. And I think we looked for a good 6+ months because we wanted to adopt a corgi. My husband had found corgis on, there was a show a long time ago. It was like the Girls Next Door. It was like Hugh Hefner's girlfriends, and one of
Yeah,
them
they
has a
had a
corgi.
corgi. Yeah,
Yeah. And Drew's
that's
like,
how I learned about the show. Is
yeah,
one of my friends messaged me and was like, "Hey, you need to watch the Hugh Hefner show." And I was like,
yeah,
what interest do I have in Playboy?" And she's like, "No,
Yeah.
no, no,
right.
she has a corgi." And I'm like, "Oh, well, I suppose I'm going to be
Who
watching it
knew?
now." Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So of all the places, that's where we decided to get a corgi. He was like, "We're getting that kind of dog." So we looked forever and we could not find one up for adoption. And so our very first corgi we got from a small breeder in Minnesota. And that was in 2007. And then ever since then we've adopted. And it's been easier, I would say, since then, just of,
Yes.
trying to find them and just having that network of corgis being adoptable. And you don't just have to go to Pet Finder anymore. There's local places, there's local Facebook groups that share all of these listings and things. So it's much, much easier now. So that was our first corgi almost just shy of 20 years ago. And since then, we've had Derby was our next corgi, followed by Churchill, and we both got them from the Animal Rescue League of Iowa.
Such great
And
Aw.
names.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep. Horse racing themed was how that started.
Right. Right.
And they were just, I don't even remember. I think we just looked on the website one day and saw a corgi came in, and that place operates as, first come, first serve. So it's like we were at the door when they opened, like, show me the dog, like, where is he? And
Yeah. Yeah.
so yes, and so Churchill actually, Derby, we got to him right away. And then Churchill, there was actually someone that had an application in before us.
Mm.
And so we put one in and kind of met him and we're like, "Oh, I don't think we're gonna get you, but we'll see." And they're like, they have until 4 o'clock tomorrow to come back. And they didn't come back. And so they called
Wow.
us and they're like, "He's ready for you." And so we got him. And then
Oh.
after that, here comes Windsor and Wembly. We found a small rescue just east of Des Moines here in Iowa, and they work a lot with a lot of large-scale breeders, a lot of questionable breeders, and puppy mill type areas, just to try to get the dogs out that they can.
Yes.
So they have a lot of connections in those areas, and that's where Windsor came from, and just by word of mouth, they kind of knew about us, knew we were looking for another corgi, and said, "Hey, we have this 4-year-old corgi coming in." Met him. He was perfect. And then here we are now. I don't know how many years that would have been, 5+ years later. And we were looking for a corgi again. And they just so happened to have one come in and they called us first and they're like, "We want him to go to you." And we're like, "We don't do puppies. We want older dogs." And because he was, I think, 6 months as far as they knew. Wembley was pretty little. But we're like, "All right, let's try it. Let's do it. We can do it, right?" And so
Yeah.
that's where we are. So yeah.
Oh, I
There
love
you
it.
are. I
Yeah.
love the stories. I love the stories.
Yeah, I'm always just, it hits me right in the feels how they find us, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that was
love
like
it.
Hammer. I got him out of a McDonald's parking lot in Quartzsite, Arizona. The guy was homeless. I'm not sure, something happened in his situation. He used to have a house in the yard, but he was living out of his van. And this is how I learned about the subculture. It's like modern day gypsies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
These people live in like vans or RVs,
Yes.
and they travel from swap meet town to swap meet town. They'll do some business there for a few months and then they'll move on. So that's what he was doing. And he had a sewing machine in his van, and he would sew little pockets on the aprons for area restaurants. And so that's what he was doing there. But he had Hammer, who he had gotten as a breeder, retire.
Wow.
And yeah, and so he had posted him on Craigslist. Craigslist is a scary place,
Yeah.
It is.
because their fighting rings will pick up bait dogs from
Yep.
there. And but a lot of people don't know that if they post them on Craigslist, you don't know where they're going to wind up. And so I ended up answering it and driving out there to get him. And I'll never forget it. Every time we go to California, we have to go through Quartzsite,
Yeah.
and I always see the McDonald's. I'm like, that's where I got my Hammer. The McDonald's
Yeah.
parking lot. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Those little,
great though.
those little memories. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're coming up on just about a year that we had
Just
to
about
say
a year.
goodbye to him. I also got him when he was 4. So
Mhm.
you got your rescue when he was 4. He was about 4. And then I had him for 9 beautiful years. And about the last year and 8 months or so, he developed degenerative myelopathy and went continuously downhill. So
Yeah.
we had to make the decision. So he didn't suffer
Mhm.
when he went.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah.
so hard.
Yes.
Whew.
It's the toughest thing we as parents have to do,
Yeah.
I think. And
Absolutely.
it's amazing and wonderful that you're going to the different rescues and saying, okay, I'm going to take this corgi that doesn't have a home right now, and find his or her forever home. Are For our listeners, do you talk about the adopting the corgis and how amazing it feels to adopt, how amazing it feels to get, to go to a reputable breeder? Of course, we don't poo-poo that. And Candy has some amazing little boys.
I've had both
Yeah.
rescues and breeder purchase.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so on your show, do they talk about do the
It's
dogs talk about
not the podcast is the adventures
the podcast is
of
the
Wembley and
adventures?
Windsor,
Yes.
yeah.
And on
Which
the
I love.
podcast, does he talk about how amazing it is that Becca is his mama?
I mean, it sounds like a pretty amazing life.
It does. So
I feel like you just gave us next week's podcast. I didn't
Okay,
know what to
there
do
I
yet,
go.
so we could go that route. Yes.
what an amazing life, and how it feels to be adopted.
Mhm. I like that a lot from their perspective too. It's like, 'cause I
Yeah.
can talk about it all day long, but I wonder, from a dog's perspective. I mean, I feel like that'd be very interesting to touch on that.
Well, and I can speak to how grateful I mean, you can definitely tell
Yes.
that the ones that I've gotten from a breeder are a little bit more spoiled because they haven't seen the other side.
Yes.
And and I've said that to Mortimer before. Do you want to go to the shelter and see how the other half lives?
Right.
But I mean, it's that's they do have a slightly different. They do seem grateful, like
I would
Booger,
agree.
Hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and Zelda was the same. She was my rescue girl, and yeah. So I'm good point.
I think that's a great perspective of what is it like for them to
Mhm.
know that they were saved.
It
Right.
takes them a
Exactly.
while to be comfortable.
It does.
Just
Absolutely.
like in rescue, we talk about the 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Start to move into a state of comfort and actually feeling like they're parked somewhere.
So was it easier with a 6-month-old rescue for him to get used to uh, being with other dogs, being in the home, or was it about the same, that 3 weeks, 3
Um,
months?
I think kind of what you spoke to with fosters, I think we've been so lucky that both Wembley and Windsor had foster families before us. And so they at least got that initial feel of, potty training and being inside and all of that. So I think that definitely helped a ton. They're completely different. Windsor is the calmest corgi you will ever meet. Like when people see him, they're like, I want a corgi. I'm like, this is probably not what you're gonna get.
No.
This is not normal for the breed.
Right.
But he is like kind of like you said, with just I feel like he's so grateful from coming from whatever life he had before us that he's like, I
Yes.
am content doing nothing. I will just lay here in the sun. And Wembley, I think, because he's a little younger, he just doesn't really know any better, and he's just has so much energy. But
Sure.
I mean, I feel like we did kind of get kind of a clean slate with Wembley when we got him. Of he doesn't have quite as much past history because he's so young and he probably doesn't really remember whatever he does have.
Right.
So it was just more training. I mean, Windsor he's so mellow, and Wembley, we just had to be a bit more hands-on of actually giving him commands and getting that training up front for just even the basic things of like not jumping up on people. And that's something we still work with constantly. So they're so
Me too.
different. Yes. But but it's just understanding their personalities, and they're all going to be different. And I do try to tell that to people too when they're considering the breed, adopting or not. Just that Windsor is probably not what you're going to get, but I do feel like part of how you like in our house, like we're very calm people. We we lounge a lot and watch TV, and I feel like sometimes your dogs kind of adapt that too. So
I
if you're
think so.
constantly taking your dog out to a dog park or this or that or whatever, and they're always active and always on the go and always around other dogs and people, like I feel like they can tend to crave that too, versus like in our world, like we like to think that they finally learned to do what we do. And so Wembley right away was just all over the place. He never stopped moving. He just it just you're just like, "Dog, please could you take a nap for just like 30 minutes?" And now, I mean, he's 1 year older, so maybe a little less energy, but I do think just by kind of putting him in that space often of like, we're gonna sit and do nothing, and and it's okay to do nothing. I feel like they finally kind of adapt to that too, and so that can also help. Just I know the breed is usually a bit more energetic, but I feel like there's things you can do just with your lifestyle to just help kind of shape them to, how you like to relax, how you are at home.
Yeah, I'm a trainer and we talk about that. Build predictable patterns.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, predictable and unpredictable patterns. But yeah, 100%. I mean, Chuckles kind of finally acquiesced to that. I mean, but we stay busy though.
You stay busy, and Digby has gotten used to, he'll sit under my desk because I sit there all day at work, and he'll just sit there under my desk and knows when we go OUT, which I have to spell, which I think he learned how to spell because if I said it out loud right now, he'd go running for the door. So he knows patterns, predictable patterns.
Yes. Yep,
They
absolutely.
they become you. They
Mhm.
just like children are little mini me's. I believe our dogs are little mini me's as well.
Yeah, they definitely pick up on your energy for sure. For
Yes,
sure.
agreed. Yep.
Yeah. We talk about that in training a lot. If you have to both be in a space where you're open to learn. If you
Yes.
become frustrated, your dog is going to pick up on that, and then you're both going to be
Mhm.
frustrated.
That would
Yep.
be me.
Yep.
So you and Digby trained just well.
We
I don't
did.
know if I was
Yeah.
training you or Digby, but yeah,
You're always training the human.
training the human to train the dog.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, what would you just based on everything we've talked about today, what do you wish everyone knew? I mean, we talk a lot about what corgi ownership is, or I say parentage. I don't like to say ownership because it's different kind of dynamic, but what corgi parentage is really like and the things to be prepared for. And we all love them; they're adorable. But what are you really getting into? So we try to
Mhm.
give
Yeah.
people that information to be preemptive, to say, as long as you're prepared for this and you like the challenge, then of course you have our blessing. Please listen to us on where to get one. But what do you wish everyone kind of knew with your journey of having these babies?
Yeah, I think it still centers kind of around the fact that they're all so different. And, you see one corgi and they could be calm because they had a past life that they're timid now, or maybe they've just gone through a lot of training. Maybe their owner has been very consistent with training. And you may see a really crazy energetic corgi, and maybe they've gone through a lot of training and they're working on it, or maybe they've done no training with the corgi. So it's just like it's just trying to remember that like the breed, while they are a herding breed, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you're going to get, but obviously be prepared for that because that is kind of the norm. But then like the work you're willing to put into a dog, I mean, with any breed, like they are what you can make them to some extent. If you're willing to
Right.
put the time and effort into it with training, just basic manners and things like that, like you really can help yourself and your dog out so much by just giving them that guidance. And so I always hate when I see people and, their dogs are maybe not behaving to what you'd want to see. And like, I know they don't do any training with them. They're just like, oh, they're such a bad dog. And it's like, well,
Mm,
I kind of feel like there's no bad dogs, only bad owners, bad humans. So maybe do a little bit of work, but it's like to them, it's like their lost cause. It's like, well, you could try to do a little bit.
that's right.
And I know there's some situations where, dogs have done so much training and just, they're just not progressing through what you would want to see. So I mean, there's situations where they've done what they can, gone to training classes, and it's just not working out. But I feel like even just putting just the bare minimum in sometimes, like you have to stay consistent. And that's so hard to do. But especially with this breed, like they definitely need
A
that
job.
guide. They need something to do. They need to learn how to listen to you, what to do, what you want them to do. Like, I feel like they're willing to learn. They're all willing to learn if you just are willing to teach them.
I
Yeah,
agree.
absolutely. Well, and I love that you've said that. I always tell everybody, because I do a lot of obedience training, and obedience training, people say, "Oh, they're a good dog," or she, him, they're a good dog. But I'm like, okay, I'm sure they're a good dog. That's not what obedience training is. And I think that's perspective is everything, right?
Right.
And so it's obedience is increasing the communication between you and your dog. You're giving your dog confidence because you're teaching them new skills, and they're working with you and they're bonding with you on a new level, and you learn to read each other's nuances better. And there's all these benefits like that to training that really have nothing to do with specific cues at all.
No.
It's a simple sit, watch me while I do this, and wait. Those kind of things, very basic cues, but it's teaching your dog to, to check in with their handler, impulse control,
Yep.
which is a huge part of it.
Oh yeah.
Learning to have them diversify in different environments so that they're not at threshold because they've been exposed to different environments and have learned how to behave in predictable patterns, and all of those things. And I want to say about perspective, and I think as humans, we need to give our dogs, we need to give them the perspective that, or need to understand from them, be empathetic. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
We need to be empathetic with them, because if you think about how long we've been domesticating dogs, what, 300-400 years, something like that, that's a very short evolutionary pattern of shoving them into a lifestyle.
Yes.
As wonderful as companions as they still are animals, and they're still have been thrust into this
Yes.
world. So when we say, oh, he or she's a bad dog, are they really a bad dog, or are they just acting out of instinct and out of their own proclivity for their breed and work drive, prey drive, check the boxes? But are you stimulating them? Have you tried to pipe into your dog what motivates your dog? What fulfills your dog? Playing in on that is really what makes a quote unquote bad dog into a good dog. You've learned what motivates them and what fulfills them. And the two of you are communicating now.
Yeah. And
now you have a calmer dog that's actually responsive.
Absolutely. And I think I love that Wembly has his own show.
Yes.
And the perspective that you really have to think about, well, what is he thinking in order to do the show? And that opens up a lot of interesting thoughts. We don't think about what they think about. We don't think about, how they view us. So I love the concept of the show.
Yeah.
To let us know what
a day in the life.
Yeah. But
yes,
all the time. And what is he thinking? How is he thinking? How is he processing this? And I'm sure you've got it really, really right. When we observe our little, fur babies, we can get those things pretty right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Perspective and empathy go a long way.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. Agreed.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We don't want to keep you all night. We know that you've got babies to take care of and a show to produce yourselves. But again, we highly recommend that you follow those Templeton Corgis, and I will share those links down in the description box of this episode, both on YouTube and on our audio. So if you're not sure where to find them, then you will have a quick pick link. Becca, please give everybody belly rubs for us.
Yes.
Will do. They will love that.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your night.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
So you're going to start listening to the podcast?
I'm going to start listening to the podcast.
You should. It's a lot of fun.
I'm sure, and I love that it's from the little guy's perspective.
Yeah, super precious. I'm in love with little Wembly. Both of them. How could I not? Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like and subscribe if you did. We cover a number of subjects. We have over 130 episodes of Corgi parentage goodness. The more that you support us, the more that we can do this. We're going to sign off tonight. We will see you next week. Candy and Chuckles.
Catherine and Digby.
And Mortimer, Tito, and Booger. See you next week.
See you next week. Bye.